So next up is Alma.
Hello, my name is Alma. I am going to be talking about a case for developer experience. It's a cool thing that we're looking at in my company now. And I just wanted to share what bits I've learned and what we're currently doing in the org. But before I get started, I just wanted to let you guys know a little bit about who I am. So my name is Alma Tarfa. I'm a senior software engineer at Workhuman. This year, I won the Rising Star Award in the Diversity in Tech Awards. Thank you. But for me, it was just great that the people you work with value the work that you do and they want to recognize it and celebrate it. So that was just great for me. The next thing is that I'm not trying to do like all my accolades, but still. So I'm in a book called The Voices in the Shadow. The Voices in the Shadow is a book that features the stories and journeys of 51 Black women in the tech industry across the UK and Ireland. 500 of these books are being, this is the second volume of the book, and 500 of these books are being distributed across schools within the UK and Ireland. So above all, it's just great to see representation of Black women in technical roles and non-technical roles in the tech industry. So that's the good thing. So that's all the hype stuff. But one of my favorite things is the Spotify Wrapped. So my Spotify aura from last year is hype and chill. So if you know anything about me, I can have my hype moments and my very chill moments. So just don't come to me with hype energy when I'm trying to be chill. It's just not going to work well for you. And so I think I went back. So this pic here is my capoeira group. So I was looking at martial arts that I wanted to do, but I did not want to be kicked in the face. And I did not want any bones in my body to be broken because I got kicked in the face. So capoeira seemed like a good one. It's a Brazilian martial arts. So you're doing like, you're learning how to play instruments, you're doing these mad kicks, you're learning handstands and backflips. I'm not going to be doing like adult gymnastics at this age. So I'm like, you know what? Capoeira seems like a good fit. And you're also learning a little bit about Brazilian culture as well. So that's pretty good. I am born in Nigeria, so I'm very, very proudly Nigerian. I love Nigerian food, culture, music, all of that stuff. Sad enough, Nigeria is not in the World Cup this year, so go Ghana. We're putting the Jollof Wars aside for this moment, but we're going to come back to it straight after. Really quickly, fun fact, I was a technical theater counselor and a theater manager for a summer camp in the US for my J1. This year, a couple of friends and I went to Asia. So we went to Dubai, Singapore, Malaysia, and Bali. I'm obsessed with ramen now and nasi goreng. So if you share that love, come hit me up. And if you have any restaurant recommendations as well, I'm trying to like ramen my way through Dublin. So let me know. And because I work for Workhuman and their whole thing is social recognition and being grateful and sharing gratitude. So, and also because we had Thanksgiving on Thursday in the States, I'm most grateful for my family, friends, and encouragement and support. I have so many hype people in my life that really, really support every single thing I do. So that's just a little bit about me. So on to developer experience. So in the next few minutes, I'm hoping to answer these three questions for you. What is developer experience? What does a DevX team look like? And what is Workhuman doing? Don't worry, it's not super complicated stuff here. We'll get to the definitions and you'll understand. So the definitions. These are a couple of definitions that I found that I thought were really cool. So developer experience is the equivalent of user experience when the primary user of the product is a developer. DX cares about the developer experience of using product, its libraries, SDKs, documentation, framework, open source solutions, general tools, API, etc. Another definition is a developer experience is the amount of friction a developer experiences between having clarity on what they want to implement and getting to the point where they have created that thing. And then the last one, which is currently my favorite, is that developer experience is about focusing on the day-to-day experience of delivering software on a team, understanding what is getting in the way, what are the biggest constraints and bottlenecks and frustrations in that process, and then improving those to increase the capacity and productivity of the team as a whole. It's a bit of a mouthful, but that is currently my favorite one. So just out of curiosity, my team, we did a Google Trends search on basically the word developer experience, and we can see that it is kind of trending upwards. So it's becoming more popular in the industry. So I would like to take you on a journey, what I call there's always a backstory. So there's always a backstory. So one of the major contributors that we can see to the rise of DevX is mostly because of the shift of remote and hybrid working. And also we can probably say the pandemic and the hiring boom has probably had the highest impact on engineers as well. So, but there's two people we need to look at, business leaders and developers. So business leaders, because of remote working and hybrid working, they want to measure performance and developer productivity. And the goal is just to be successful and innovative. Developers, because of the pandemic and the hiring boom, are more selective about where they work. And they would like to work with systems that work and don't cause them confusion and pain. And the goal is to spend more energy doing their work and not fighting tools and processes. So some of the great thing that came out of it was that in 2018, there was a book called Accelerate, which is about building and scaling high-performing technology organizations. And Nicole Fostering was one of the pioneers behind that. So Accelerate has four DORA metrics. That was when we were introduced to it. So that's deployment frequency, change lead time, change failure rate, and time to restore service. So deployment frequency is how often does a software team pushes changes to production. Change lead time is the time it takes to get committed code to run in production. And change failure rate is the share of incidents, rollbacks, and failures out of all deployments. And the last one, time to restore, is if something breaks in production, how quickly can we get it back up and running? So these metrics look at software delivery performance, but ultimately what this research did show was that engineering performance basically helps businesses. So then we're looking through the lens of developer productivity, then came the SPACE framework. So the SPACE framework has the words SPACE, and it basically is satisfaction and well-being, performance, activity, communication and collaboration, efficiency, and flow. So satisfaction, you're looking at how fulfilled and happy and healthy are your devs or your teams or the system. Performance is basically the outcome of a process. Activity is the count of actions or outputs. Communication and collaboration is how do people talk and work together? How do other teams work with each other? Efficiency and flow is the minimal work delays or interruptions. Flow is currently becoming one of my favorite things because as a developer, when you don't have any meetings, you don't have anything, and you're able to just go into code and work away, just that, like you're in the zone, you know what you're doing, and you're working through your through the ticket. So SPACE really put forward the idea that developer productivity is complex to understand and to measure or improve developer productivity. You need to be looking at it from 5 different angles, basically. But there is a challenge to all of this is how do we measure these well? What can we do with them? And do SPACE and DORA give us a holistic understanding of software delivery performance and developer productivity? Before I get into deeper, I wanted to highlight there's a research work being done beyond DORA and SPACE, and it's being done by DX. So they have an enterprise product called GetDX. So in Workhuman, we're currently doing a trial with them with our celebrations and social recognition team. But so a lot of the work is just you're measuring getting data from engineers and developers through surveys, and they get prompted through Slack to complete the surveys. The surveys are like 3 or 5 minutes to do, and it's very low on the cognitive load, and you're able to quickly identify what are the key areas that are potentially blockers or points of frustrations for your developers. But this research is being kind of driven with Nicole Fostering, which was the founder of DORA and the author of Accelerate, and Dr. Margaret Ann Story, who was the co-founder of SPACE Framework, and Dr. Michaela as well, who is created the DX framework. So just developer experience teams. Before developer experience teams evolved to what they are now, there were several iterations basically to get here. So most orgs started with teams looking at engineering excellence and how to make developers more effective and successful. So these would be categorized as enablement teams because it's their responsibility to enable engineers to do their best work. So all that focus is inwards into the org, and they're trying to see what can we do to make people more effective, get them to save time, and to help them adopt better practices. So in the industry today, these teams could look like infrastructure, developer productivity, engineering excellence, software delivery lifecycle, engineering enablement teams, and platform as well. So some of these teams tend to be focused on processes and culture, driving change through that, or they're looking at tools and technology and technical stuff that the teams are using, or they use a mix of the two of them. So in order to improve developer experience in orgs, basically you're looking at technology and tooling, looking at best practices, and potentially driving cultural or even organizational changes. But so before going further, I wanted to drop this quote. So every company has a developer experience, but not every company has a developer experience team. Just to kind of do a delineation between the two, because I think sometimes they kind of go hand in hand. So there's a lot of tech companies out there that are currently have developer experience teams, and these are just a couple of logos. So this is just a small group of them. There's so many tech companies that have spun up developer experience, developer enablement, developer productivity teams, and they're really looking at their developers as basically clients and wanting to help their journeys while they're working. So DevX team. So in this section, I just wanted to look at a DevX team in one organization is probably one of the organizations that was in this logo. So start making your bets on which one you think it's going to be. And we're going to explore what the DevX journey was for them, what their team did, and where does DevX fit into their org structure. So the DevX team I'm going to look at is at GitHub. So at GitHub, they had a very interesting journey, being that they did not ship any features for an entire quarter. They stopped. They said no. And this decision came down because they knew how these inefficiencies could affect their customers and retention of their engineers and also satisfaction of their employees too. So, but one of the key things they actually looked to start tackling was documentation, where it was being stored, where to find it for, and so they had things in personal repositories, Google Drives, and all that. So they just wanted a single source of truth. Another activity that they did was they ran surveys and product-related activities to find the pain points for the developers. Then they identified focus areas and then they narrowed them down, and then they went to the engineering teams to try and find people who would lead each of those work streams that they found. But they approached it in a very collaborative way. They wanted to hear feedback on what they should focus on, which would be more impactful. So they just collaborated with them. So one example was with their release and their deployment. So they moved from having like a train sort of where someone managed it manually to having like a merge process where a lot of the pull requests were handled. A lot of pull requests were handled away from that development cycle. So that made things a lot easier for them. So keeping momentum in GitHub, what they did was they identified key measures. So after they'd taken that break for 3 months of not shipping code, they wanted to identify what they should look at to keep the momentum going. They also started doing monthly meetings, and then they did every quarter they did a development satisfaction survey. So basically identifying key measures that they would watch in addition to DORA. So that was success rate and also the number of manual steps it takes, and also elapsed time. And in these meetings that they had, these monthly meetings, they evaluated the key measures, those key measures above, so DORA and the success rates and manual steps and elapsed time. And they they wanted to catch very early whether these trends are going good or going in a bad direction. And then they fed all of this back into their planning. So every quarter they ran these developer satisfaction surveys, and it was basically a check-in with their developers. They wanted to understand what are the pain points, but also use that data to then drive it into investments and future planning. So overall, the gist of it is that when your employees are engaged and they're taken care of and they feel heard, and all the things that they're basically complaining about or raising are tackled, it does pay dividends in the end, and you are keeping that retention and keeping attrition very low. So the mission statement for the DevX team at GitHub was, we want to show the world how to build software using GitHub, but also we want to be an example of how we use our platform the best. So in terms of org structure, developer experience kind of sits under platform. And so they're in charge of the entire workflows, from shipping code, the environments that people code on, and all the way to building, testing, and deploying on all those environments that they have. Engineering is driving this, but it's a very strong collaboration with product as well. They're walking alongside them, and this has senior leadership buy-in. So the senior vice president is accountable for all of it. The VPs, directors, and engineering managers have their piece as well. And all, I think Liz Sailing really said was really great, was that it should drive health in the organization. So that's GitHub there. So very quickly, I'll go through what Workhuman is doing. So this is basically the final section. And I'm going to explore what DevX currently looks like at Workhuman. So a group of engineers got together, a group of people who were diverse. We had directors, senior directors, we had a principal QA engineer on the team, we had a principal engineers. I was part of the team as well. We all got together. It was a diverse group of people. We had architecture, infrastructure, platform, just a lot of people with diverse skills, diverse years of service. The whole point of it was just to create a team that was different, to look at what we can do to create an environment where engineers and engineering are thriving, basically. And I will get into the kind of the roadmap that we did. But we currently don't have a DevX team. We have a working group who are looking at these requirements. So I'm going to explore, what does our working group do? And the last bit here is, what is next for us? So this is our DevX journey. In last year, we were looking at, so one of the senior leaders did a presentation of deploying at will in a tech and product leads meeting in November. And then we also did a cost of delay analysis, deploying through the daily release train. So we then did a focus group on onboarding experience. I think I was also part of this focus group, I think. So when you have engineers that join your organization, one of the key things that we were actually really looking at was that speed to competency ratio. So how long for them, once they get started, can they start shipping code to production? How long does that take them? So that was one of the things we wanted to figure out as a new person joining the organization. What is frustrating you? So we got a group of people that joined recently, and we actually asked them, so what went well? What didn't go well for you? What do you think is missing? What can we do to improve that? So we did stay interviews with people in our social recognition and celebrations area. So I like the idea of stay interviews. So you just interview devs that have been there in the org and find out what is it that they like and what is it that they don't like and what is it that we can improve on, just to get that feedback loop opened. Then we did a focus group on Mood Tracker results. So Mood Tracker is a Workhuman product. It's a pulse survey, and it basically asks people a series of questions. Do you see yourself working here in the next year? How are you finding collaboration with your teammates? So a whole bunch of other questions, but there's a comment at the end of the survey. So the focus group was really looking at what comments are people saying, how are people feeling. Yeah, so that was what the focus group kind of looked to do. we had someone create a doc on the thoughts about developer experience, and they published this on Confluence. And then we had another doc created on developer productivity and happiness. So we finally then took the plunge and created the developer experience Slack group. So then everyone started contributing with the GIFs and the memes now, but we created it then. DX, which is kind of Get DX, which I alluded to earlier. We did a demo with one of the co-founders, which was great for them to bring us through their system and show us what that looked like and how we can see the different teams in the org through their software. So we now kicked off our weekly forum, which was really cool. So every Wednesday morning, we meet up and just discuss what changes we would like to see in this dev team. What do we want the dev team to look like? And then we had our first workshop in Workhuman. So we had it on site. Everyone came in together, and it was great. Then one of our senior directors was doing an empowerment initiative for work. So we basically reframed that and merged it into the developer experience. So I think the important thing here to note is that empowerment and enablement, like they're two different things. So we want to enable people, but we want them to feel empowered that they can drive change in the org as well. So our engineering office hours kicks off. So it's a forum where people can join in on a Friday and just talk about different things. I think the last time we were talking about contract testing, which was very interesting to learn something new about what other teams are doing. Then developer experience then gets prioritized under the platform pillar on the revised technology strategy board for 2020. So it was just great to finally see this being on the roadmap and seeing senior leadership wanting this in the org. And then we kick off our pilot with the social recognition and celebrations team. So the working group, what we did was we took inspiration from different places. So all these other companies that have developer experience groups, what are they doing? So we wanted to take insights and learnings from everyone and find what resonated best within our context. We are a smaller org, so not everything GitHub or Google or all the other big companies, big tech companies would work for us. So we really wanted to understand what works for us and what doesn't work for us. So like I said, we're a diverse group. We have from different perspectives, we have years of service, seniority, gender, and areas of expertise. So that was very important. I think one of the senior leaders was saying she feels weird if there's only a group of men making decisions for the org. So it was great to have a group of people with different thought processes in the group. We avoided jumping into solutions straight away. So I think with a group of tech leaders, it's very easy, like, okay, this is what we're going to do. So we really wanted to ideate on a lot of the issues that we were seeing and work around how this team was going to look like. So we conducted workshops. One of the things we looked at was empathy mapping. So empathy mapping, we explored what is it that stakeholders and developers, what do they feel? What were they thinking? What were they saying? And trying to document that so we can see, okay, what are the gaps here? And what do we need to bring to make the cohesion between the two? We came up with a hypothesis definition as well. We defined some OKRs that we wanted to. So OKRs are objective key results. So what is our objective and what are the key results that we wanted from it? And we did this reverse brainstorming as well. So it was a lot of kind of exercises to kind of come up with if the right idea and the right thinking around the team. So we're formulating as well what skills are needed in this DevX team. We know that it's important to have senior leadership attention here. So this team needs direct access to leadership, to VP level, basically. And then what lies within developer experience? What are some things that this developer experience team can do? Well, what are other things that the business can drive? Because it's not everything that could lie within developer experience. And then also we wanted to see how this team interacts with other teams in the organization, because we would like to be able to put things in people's backlogs for them to work on, but we need to understand what level of control this team would have. So it's a lot of exploratory work. So what's next for us is we would like to introduce DX to all the engineering teams. We've only piloted it with celebrations and the other team want to finalize the requirements for the team. So we know we also want a technical product manager. So those are a couple of things that we need to finalize. We need to get investment for the team as well. And then we need to form the team. So as a summary, I wanted to come in here and let you guys explain developer experiences, which is basically a journey that a developer goes through and the frictions that they encounter as they're trying to do their job. Developer experience team seeks to understand what those impediments are for people to work and try and alleviate those pain points for them. So DevX team can have many names, but I walked through what the GitHub team did and they continue to do. So with the work that Workhuman is doing, we're trying to understand our devs more with a vision and goal in mind that we want our devs to basically do their best work. But we know that working closely with senior leadership will establish this team, but we don't want to rush into it. We want to basically do this right. So that's how we're doing it. So I think that's everything from me. Sure.
I'll start by.
Thank you so much for sharing that insight. I'm very curious how you guys gonna drive this program, because obviously right now you only have a team, like a work stream team. And also you obviously have direct access to senior exec leadership, VP level. I'm sure all your early adopter teams will be very engaged and committed to it. And how do you ensure the rest of the major majority uptaking this program and also make sure it is making some meaningful impact? What's your strategy, midterm, long term, and also what's your ultimate business impact goal of this program?
Thank you for your question. So there's a couple of things that before we even get started, one thing that we really want to look at is educating and bringing people on board to it. We have noted that there could be resistance from developers. That is a very strong thing that we've noted. So what we're trying to do is more drive a cultural change first before we start asking people, hey, do you mind fixing this issue? So that is where we see value first and foremost. In terms of the org, Workhuman is an organization that really cares about its people. That's in every single thing it does. So this is very much in line with business goals and business what the business wants to drive forward. And we can see the benefits of having teams that are efficient and there's no impediments into their work and we're able to deliver faster. Customer satisfaction is really high. Being able to have predictable delivery dates as well is very important as well. So we reckon that a lot of this work, when it's implemented, will drive a lot of that business value as well.
Hi, Alma. Thanks. Great discussion. My question is, it seems like DevX requires a lot of buy-in from senior management. So if you're a dev, how do you get the ball rolling on that discussion?
So what has really worked is getting buy-in from management. It goes up the chain before you can get up to senior level. So we have managers in our working group. We have directors as well. So what really started, and I think back to that roadmap, was just people creating initiatives and presenting at different meetings just to highlight some of the value that it could have. But it really just starts off with creating a group of people together, like creating that Slack group and wanting to, this is what we want to do, and creating time for it. And then actually, because in our org, we have a very kind of a system where it's very easy to approach senior leadership with a document, a PDF saying, or a presentation saying, this is what we would like to do. And will you allow us to give you these insights? And we would like we would like buy-in on this. We have had discussions with enterprise as well, the enterprise architecture team, because we would like to get the DX platform. So it's just recognizing as well, as a dev, getting feedback from your other developers and say, this is a problem. It takes us so long to push things to production, or our daily release is lagging, or why are merge requests taking so long? So having those conversations documented and kind of building on a case first and then presenting it to senior leadership, I think that would probably be the best way to go about it. But getting a group together, you're stronger when you're together than having, but also trying to get people in that step towards leadership to buy into it as well. But you will always need someone that drives it. So if this is something you're considering in your org, you need to be ready to kind of push for it and drive it as well.
Hi, Alma. Thank you very much for that great session. DevX is actually a new concept to me. It seems amazing. I have actually two questions. One is like similar to this agile coach and something like that. Do we have, I understand that DevX is relatively new concept, but do we have something like companies who provide consulting for this DevX concept, like something like DevX coach, so that they can come to your company and drive these kind of transformations?
No, there isn't DevX, sorry. No, there isn't DevX coaches as of yet, but one of the things we're actually looking at is maybe contacting some of the pioneers, Nicole Fostering, or other people who have done, so Nicole Fostering was the one who came out with the Dora metrics, and she was one of the co-authors of Accelerate, and she's also working with the DX team as well. So it's getting thought leaders in that space to come in and actually talk to developers and senior leadership. So that comes back to the whole thing about educating people on what is developer experience, so there's alignment in the org. So there isn't exactly a coach, but if you get taught leaders in to kind of talk about their work and their ideas around it, that is very beneficial.
My next question is like similar to what we hear in I forgot her name, Carolina's session. The why behind people staying in this tech industry would be different for different people. So one of the popular trends is popular thing. Why is the motivation, correct, by rewards and recognitions. But upon my personal experience, I see that nowadays, I don't know, is it company or culture difference or anything like that, but sometimes I feel like people are very reluctant to appreciate, sorry for being hard, I mean, appreciate the work of other people, if you understand what I mean. So is there a special segment in this DevX to address that special issue, if you understand? How can we drive a culture with appreciation? Did you understand my question? Okay.
That's hilarious because that's what Workhuman does. That's their product. So they do social recognition. So in the platform we have is just basically, if your colleague does a great job and you want to just reward them and just say thank you, it goes a bit further that you can send them an award, write an award message, put a picture to it, and then they can go and buy things in their store, in our e-commerce platform. So I think when you have a culture of appreciation already ingrained in your org, I feel like it's a lot easier to get people to collaborate on a lot of these issues. So I think it is a culture issue. If the culture is not prone for appreciating people, then they need to think about it. But our org is appreciation, and appreciating the work people do is part of what we do. So yeah.
So I've tried that a few times, improve process, and not only worker experience, developer experience, but I think you're wasting your time. I just answering your question. If the senior managers are not into it, and I know this from the fact, you're wasting your time. I mean, you can say all you want. There might be a speak up policy, but you're wasting your time. But just on a positive though, my wife, Mary, she's a change management, which sounds very, very like what you're saying. But Department of Education actually got an external and put a big budget in there. They got an external person in to show how you do change management. What they did though is they, got, teams, pilot teams as such. But what they did is what they integrated culture is that, talk about how you're working at the moment, and that's what got a group, and how can you improve it. And all of a sudden, and then there was a huge resistance at the start. Manager says, "Oh, I mean, these guys are going to be taking time off and they're not going to work." But what they did is that, and the experienced change manager, he actually know how do you deal with resistance. So we went down and started talking to each other, and then I realized, I mean, there's so many inefficiencies. What even the simplest thing, and I pick a simple thing that do, there's so many inefficiencies. It's unbelievable. So all of a sudden, then the workers themselves, that team got buy-in and says, "Oh yeah, this is crazy what we're doing." They actually got buy-in, but then they would, then you expanded a bit, but then, you get people that get buy-in. They says, well, they actually talk to other people, and slowly but surely that kind of culture of change and making things better. And says the power is in our hands. Like, I mean, talk about it. And it's very, very similar. I think what you were doing here is that, so that's how you get buy-in. But if senior management are not going to invest in it, not going to let people do it, you're wasting your time. It has to be. It has to be that way.
Yeah, I agree. If senior leadership are not going to buy in, it will not work, because the funds need to be allocated for this team to succeed, because you are hiring staff for it. But it is important. Like you said, sitting down and understanding where the inefficiencies are, and trying to figure out how to remediate it is basically the core of what DevX, developer experience teams, do. So starting in your own small way might work. But overall, if there are inefficiencies in the org and there's a danger of not doing anything as well. So that will also exacerbate eventually. And then it would lead to a lot of unpredictability in your developer work and developer productivity, but also it will lead to a lot of delays in business value as well. So it might not be maybe the org is not ready for it yet, for that conversation, if senior leadership aren't really willing to buy into it. But eventually it will get to a point that if the systems are not really in place, things will eventually get to a point where they'll collapse. But it's not good to get to that point. It's better to start fixing things that are broken now.
One final one.
That was a great presentation. Thank you. You mentioned surveys quite a bit. I wonder if you see a very good response rate from developer surveys, and if you have any tips for folks who are creating these surveys about how to do them effectively.
So I think to start off, we had Mood Tracker. So when we first launched Mood Tracker, which is our own internal pulse survey tool, a lot of people it would come up in your emails, but they wouldn't respond to it because they didn't feel like their inputs were being applied to the org. There was no ever like, oh, this is what we noted in the surveys, and this is what we've done to kind of remediate it. So, but with the DX, Get DX surveys there, but it's very lightweight, 3 minutes, 5 minutes work to do. But the fact that there's a team that is looking at those results and trying to address it. So for us, when we ran the pilot of DX, we noticed that the one sore point for our developers was collaboration with other teams. So from that, we are now realizing that, okay, so let's work on how can we create more collaboration within the other teams in the orgs. So we're looking at creating other focus groups of pulling in people who actually responded, because there's a way that you can put in comments, getting them into a Zoom call or a room and finding out, okay, how do you think we can improve on this? So I think the tip there is that if you're going to run surveys, try and make it as lightweight as possible, but also try and make sure that there's action that's being followed up on the surveys. Because if surveys are coming out and people can't see the difference, they're going to disengage. So if you want engaged people, always create that feedback loop. They answer feedbacks and you feed them more data as well on the actions that you're taking based on what they've given. So
Thank you very much.